Hello and welcome back to ESG Talk. We are so excited to have you here. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're listening. And we are excited to share with you today that over 33 countries have tuned into ESG Talk in our first month or so of the podcast. We're thrilled to be reaching you wherever you are in the world. Please continue to rate the show, provide comments. This is the feedback we crave so that we can develop the show for you. That's why I'm delighted to bring to you our next guest. Lotti Hawkins works for Farrell Associates in sustainable investing, ESG, and impact in the private markets, both in the US, UK, and Europe. She's located in Barcelona, but works all across both regions to recruit the best ESG talent. And today we're going to dive into how we approach this transition of talent. So Lotti, welcome to the show. And you're in Barcelona today, is that right?
I am indeed, yes. Barcelona, sunny Barcelona. It's quite hot, but can't complain living here, working remotely, fully remote from home. You might hear my dogs making a little bit of background noise, but I'll try to keep them quiet.
No worries. We are just glad you could be with us and in your time this afternoon. You had posted an article about the 7,000 plus job openings on LinkedIn recently in ESG. I know I shared that out on my LinkedIn and we'll put it in the show notes. I think it's so fitting for you to be here today and join our guest in this conversation. There's two exciting things that I think about you and fun facts for those coming to the table with us today is that you dedicated your career to ESG and sustainability search, and you really went into the market looking for opportunities over 5 years ago and decided that talent was a place where you could really make a difference early on before we hit the ESG boom. So I love your early adopter spirit. What I also love is that you also engage not only in the search of the field, but the actual work at your company. So you work on your Talent Roots project, which is about eliminating and addressing diversity and inclusion issues in the financial service industry. So not only do you go out and recruit great talent for this field, but you also dedicate your time to your superpower and how talent can make a difference in your own company. So to help those get to know you a little bit more, I know that you enjoy a good holiday and great travel. So can you tell us what's an interesting holiday trip you have or one that's coming up lately?
Yeah, so I actually don't have much that's coming up, sadly. I've got a couple of weeks off in August. I'm going to try and do like a surf trip to the north of Spain with my partner and our dogs. Something quite low-key really and just relax because it's been quite a busy year. But my parents have actually just moved to Zanzibar. They will be moving to Zanzibar in a couple of weeks. So probably take a trip there over the holiday season in December, which obviously be quite different. I haven't had proper international travel since COVID, probably like a lot of people out there, right? Mm-hmm. Try and get some more trips in, I guess. But yeah.
Now, have you been to Zanzibar before?
Sorry?
Have you been to Zanzibar before?
No, I haven't actually. My parents have been once before as well. They went in January, fell in love with the place, and I decided to move there. So I assume I'll probably have quite a few trips there over the next year or so. But other than that, nothing too exciting sort of coming up.
Well, you'll have to tell us, what was your favorite experience in Zanzibar and maybe a little tidbit we can take away from that. Now, I know you're used to sitting on this side of the chair asking a lot of questions to potential candidates for the companies you recruit ESG roles for. What is your favorite conversation starter question?
I guess I would always ask them, why sustainability? Why did they get into this space? And especially if I'm speaking to mid-senior people that want to transition into ESG, and if I'm doing obviously headhunting and I'm speaking to people and I know that the firm that I'm working with are open to transitioning in and things like that, and they're not looking for a climate expert or whatever, asking them questions around, why sustainability? What was it exactly? Was there, a time in your life where you thought, this is what I want to do? Was it something through your childhood, or, was it something that happened through your university, or if you went studying, and things like that? And just asking, why? What is it about it? Is it because you want to, save the planet because of the environment issues, climate change, or is it, human rights? And is it, more so on that, or is it because you're sick of capitalism, or whatever it may be? But just sort of learning a bit about them, through that, and why they would be wanting to dedicate their career to this space, or why they are dedicating their career. I guess another thing is, sort of asking them where they are in the world, and speak to people all around the world, and sort of learning about themselves and I guess their movement throughout their life. It's always good to know if people want to do international travel again and they want to move around or explore. And through that, I guess the conversation comes up with learning about, sort of each other, and understanding what makes them in their spare time as well, not just within the sort of the working capacity, I guess.
I love that you start with the why. And I think of our previous shows and guests, Dan Lambeth and Tim Mohan, and we asked that question around what was a quiet or often critical conversation that impacted you the most. And these moments are really not what we say on the show. They're not really loud and big. They're often very personal, very intimate, and very quiet moments that shape the field and the industry. So I really value that you start with that question, why. As we go deeper into the why, let's talk a little bit about your blog from this spring, where you talked about, can we collectively stop saying there is an ESG talent war? Because I do hear that a lot. I hear that a lot in the industry, that it's hard to find talent. The talent is not necessarily out there yet. We've got all these jobs on the market. And you really challenge firms and companies to stop saying it, and to stop copying and pasting and job descriptions and thinking you're going to get the talent. So tell us, what do you think are those two areas to drive talent success if somebody is recruiting for an ESG role?
Yeah, exactly. So it was, I guess, quite a popular post from many different people. It was talent teams, people reaching out to me. It was senior level professional. It was people wanting to transition. And a lot of people felt the same, obviously viewing it in different ways, but really that there are so many jobs out there. But at the same time, we shouldn't be going around in circles and focusing on the leaders that have been doing this for a long time. Yes, they can move across and go into another firm and do the exact same thing elsewhere. But are they actually going to be happy doing exactly the same thing elsewhere? Probably not. Outside of sustainability, if you just look at the wider, business, really, when does someone move to another opportunity to do the same thing? It's very rare. You'd always be stepping up into something. And I think, we need to always remember that, when we're doing ESG and, sustainability, impact investing, hiring, is don't sort of lose sight on the person that's going to be going into this role. And with that, do you actually need someone that is extremely senior, who's got, a ton of experience within this, to go in and start something from scratch, when really it obviously depends on what you want to achieve. Do you actually need someone in that's going to be coming in and leading a team and doing everything? And yes, maybe you do need someone that has got some sort of ESG investment experience, or, whatever. But what we say is, I think there needs to be more analysis of really what you want to achieve with your ESG strategy. And with that, it will depend on who you hire. Do you need someone that is extremely strategic and will be able to go in and, stakeholder management, figure things out, pull teams together, work with external, ESG consulting firms or whatever it may be to help them implement this? And therefore, you don't necessarily need someone that is an ESG head leader, before. You could get someone in that is really passionate about the space, has been following it for a long time, has got great skill sets, would really grow into this role, be within the organization for 5 years, be a real sort of leader, and drive change and help them implement it into the wider business strategy too. Really just sort of dissecting exactly what you want to achieve with your ESG strategy will mean, who you actually need to hire.
I appreciate where you're going with that, because I think that's a piece that we see as we work with customers around the world is you're going to attack your ESG strategy and implementation by looking at the talent, the technology, or the teachers. And like I said, those are the consultants. I've mentioned that on the show before. And as we think about the talent, really thinking about what it is that you want to achieve in the next 18 months to 2 years with your strategy, and how the talent can help you get there, and where you are in that journey, and the level of work that you need and to get done. And I've seen, like you said, all across the board, great seasoned leaders who have moved up into new roles. And I've seen where my own self and my own journey, looking to transition and spending deep time thinking about it, and where did I want to go and what did I want to do. And as a builder, somebody who gets excited about building and crafting and being the first one in. I've worked on a 30-year-old business before, and I was like, that's not for me. I'm a person who really likes to build things from the ground up. And so I also think as organizations do their own work to identify the right kind of talent, we need people to start transitioning themselves, right? They need to start really looking at their own skills and taking a deep look. And you and I were talking about the transferable skills that are really needed for us to take ESG off and in the right way. And I laughed because we'll put it in the show notes. There was this meme that took off in 2021. You and I joked about it a little bit as we were prepping, where it was like, what is the fastest growing thing on Earth? A cheetah, the speed of light, and then it was somebody who has ESG experience. And it was like, all of a sudden, everybody to meet these 7,000 job demands had ESG experience, but maybe they really didn't. They had more transferable skills, or had to really speak to who they were and take the time to determine that. So how do we combat that notion of everybody claiming they're an ESG specialist, and then really helping talent talk about these transferable skills honestly so that they can meet the opportunities in the search?
Yeah, exactly. I did see, that meme was quite funny. And again, I found it quite funny because, yes, there are people that have, they move into an ESG role and then they call themselves an ESG expert and everything. And in my opinion, I don't think anyone can be an expert with an ESG, because it's just, it's just changing and diversifying so much, just through the themes, but obviously the industry, and there's new regulations coming in, it's just enormous. It's so complex. But it's a really good point. I think what we need to remember as well is, if there are 7,000 jobs, and publicize, ESG, we need this experience, then you need to realize that we're not there yet. We're not there of, having that many ESG specialists that, could go into this role and they've done the same thing elsewhere or whatever. Like, we're not at that point. And your firm is obviously not at the point of having a ESG 5-year strong strategy by now, right? So it's about, if you are needing to start things from scratch, you need to get the people in that are passionate about it, that will grow with your organization, and the transferable skills. We say, the industry of investment management, particularly private equity, diversity has been a really big issue. And, not just, diversity, ethnicity diversity, gender diversity, it's all of these different elements of DEI, but also the cognitive diversity piece, and actually having different ways of thinking. And again, that comes through transferable skills and different experiences that can come in and shape a sustainability strategy to be thinking about the bigger picture as the whole. And that again comes through people. And again, they can have ESG experience, fine, but if you need someone, a data scientist that's going to be going in and creating an ESG data model or something, within investments, the talent pool of those people doing that is so small. So again, how did they start? Well, they were most likely data scientists that move into an ESG role. So, firms will need to realize that they can do that too. And then you just need to get people that are data scientists, obviously super analytical, can obviously work with other people, good stakeholder management skills and things like that. But really want to step into ESG, and they want to learn, and they are passionate, and they have their own story, that could come from previous experiences. It could be a course that they did during their studies, and anything that can help them know that this is an area that they want to go in. And then that transition is, sure, they don't have working ESG experience, but they get it. They want to transition to a role like this, and they'll be the new hire within our team. We've never done anything like this before. It's a new project. It's a new part of our strategy. So again, it's about finding people that are going to step up and be there for years, not just going in and doing something for 6 months or so and getting bored. And then again, they have the same issue if they went back to hiring again. Because we do when we work with some of our clients and they say that they've done hiring, themselves, they say these classic issues that have come up, like, we're really struggling to get people right at the final step. It comes down to money. They've got loads of other offers on the table. How do we make our job more interesting for the market and things like that? And we just say, this is going to be a dream job for someone out there. We just need to figure out exactly what, dissect this opportunity, present it to them as it is.
And as an industry spanner, I know Tim Moham was one of our first guests. We talked about that. When you span different industries, you take something from them and learn something different. And then the next job you have, it's a way that I often say, I don't regret having a decade in higher ed because it made me extremely curious. I'm able to take complex research topics and consume massive amounts of data and information and go deep on something and bring it up to what are the relevant practical points, which make you really talented in the ESG field. And so and learning and development, caring about talent, caring about the growth of a team and the growth of people and the growth of a company. And I love your story of taking on a short-term assignment or raising your hand and using your talent for your own company. I want to challenge those listening that we cannot forget the value of short-term assignments and board engagement, internal task force engagement, work stream engagement. All of that builds the ESG muscle for your community. And as compensation is starting to be linked to ESG goals at the executive level or throughout the organization, now is the time to be thinking about the transition of talent in that way, and think about how you can truly train and develop internally your organization so that your culture is ready for this transition as well. So let's go there and talk about this in our final couple questions. Let's talk about the taking on of the C-suite, this transition to C-suite roles that you have the honor and privilege to recruit for. Tell us about, we've mentioned before on the show, a study by PwC saying the number of chief sustainability officers jumped threefold in 2021. What are you seeing, and how can companies tackle if they want to hire a C-suite role for ESG?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I actually did an article on this yesterday about, sustainability hiring does change your culture. A lot of people went into sustainability because they're passionate about it, and, passion leads to them basically wanting to change the world, really. And whatever that means to the person is obviously different. But, this shift of actually putting in someone very senior, obviously C-suite, into a sustainability role, again, it's just looking beyond asset valuation, and it's looking about the long-term purpose of the company and, all of the people that they get on board. What do they want to achieve? What's their purpose as a business? And the sustainability strategy is so crucial to that, because I guess the trend of what we're seeing now is, people are going from head to global head to now C-suite sustainability professionals, CSOs at investment firms. And with that, it just shows you how much a firm obviously is now really integrating ESG and sustainability within their organization. It's very important that they have someone very senior that can handle this, when if things do go wrong, but also again to just really push it through into the rest, like the wider of their business strategy. And the sustainability strategy now is something which we will see is just will be so embedded within the entirety of the organization, and everyone, like you say, will start to do more mini projects, and things will get more integrated into everyone's roles rather than just having a dedicated team. I guess we would predict that over time, at least everyone will know what it is, ESG, but there will be an element of their role which they will, sort of get included in and sort of develop, which again goes into the wider sustainability strategy.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I do believe that, why many wake up on Monday, especially those who are trying to work into the C-suite or work with the C-suite and their board, is they ultimately believe that when business and society come together, they can create this mutual value and ultimately build a better world for humans and for our planet. So we're excited. Thank you for sharing again your front row view to this 7,000 job openings and how we can critically think about the transition of the market, how transition of talent is involved in taking on yourself and thinking about yourself and the transferable skills. And then how do you begin to take on the C-suite and prepare for that role? It's a privilege to be with you. If our guests want to connect with you more, they can connect with you on LinkedIn or visit farrellassociates.com. Lotti, thanks for joining, and everyone, we'll talk real soon.